Tonight, the province is getting ready to ease some restrictions, with Omicron cases expected to peak in the coming days.
I want to assure Ontarians that we're starting to see glimmers of hope.
The Ford government expected to make an announcement tomorrow on its reopening plan, which includes allowing restaurants to welcome back indoor dining starting at the end of the month. Plus,
what a relief. Freedom.
Mixed emotions. Happy for my daughters having to go back, but everything that's going on right now.
After a snowy delay, it's back to school for most students across the GTA today. And despite a few bumps, many kids and parents happy for the return. And
this is a sign that society really is changing.
A school in Pickering has officially been renamed in honor of an Indigenous elder who was a champion of environmental causes. Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. We begin tonight with tragedy in Toronto's West End. A woman is dead and a man critically injured after a house fire near Bloor and Dufferin.
They found a victim on the first floor. Our crews rescued, performed CPR. Unfortunately, the victim passed. The crews proceeded doing a search in the building, at the same time hitting the fire, which was in the basement. And we found another victim on the first floor, and I believe that patient or victim is still in the hospital at this time.
The flames broke out around 7 o'clock tonight in a residence on Gladstone Avenue. Several firefighters were also assessed by paramedics for heat exhaustion. The fire is now out, but crews will continue to monitor it for any flare-ups. Well, turning to the pandemic now, and some hopeful news. Ontario says new Omicron cases are expected to peak in the next few days. We can also confirm tonight that restaurants will be allowed to welcome back indoor dining at 50% capacity starting on January 31st. And no word, however, on when other places like gyms and movie theaters will be allowed to reopen. An announcement is expected from the Ford government tomorrow. But while Ontario officials say they are seeing positive signs when it comes to the virus, as Farah Morale reports, health experts are still reminding everyone to stay cautious due to a number of factors.
It was 2 weeks ago today when indoor dining shut down and gyms and theaters were closed as Omicron cases surged. Today, a sense of optimism.
I want to assure Ontarians that we're starting to see glimmers of hope.
The glimmers of hope from new trends emerging. Omicron cases are now expected to peak later this month. And while the number of people in hospital with COVID is at a record high, hospitalizations are starting to slow. Instead of doubling every few days, it's now every 2 weeks. And the length of stay in hospital is also shorter.
While this gives me more hope, we must remain cautious and humble in the face of this aggressive virus.
Some experts warn the encouraging signs don't take this into account, the return of thousands of kids to in-person learning.
I would be very cautious about making broad decisions around changes in our current practices based on these historical numbers, given some of the things that are changing literally today.
They also say the data doesn't illustrate the ongoing burden on healthcare workers, though staffing pressures appear to be easing.
Thankfully, we are seeing some signs that absentee due to COVID may be stabilizing.
It's going to be a positive announcement that we make this week.
For small businesses, that's not good enough.
Hearing that there's going to be an announcement of an announcement, and as part of that announcement, to wait for another announcement has been a very confusing and unfortunately a signature move.
And while there's now some certainty for the restaurant industry, what we still don't know is what, if any, restrictions may be lifted for other businesses. We know theaters and cinemas, for example, have been shut for weeks. We're waiting to hear more in this announcement by the government tomorrow. Farah Morale, CBC News, Toronto.
More than 4,000 long-term care staff are currently infected with COVID-19 across the province. But during this wave of the virus, families and doctors are less concerned about residents catching it and more so about a shortage of staff. Chloe Ng's mother lives at Tender Care Living Centre, one of the hardest hit homes during the first wave. Ng is worried about the care her mother is receiving and frustrated by a lack of communication.
There's communication blockage between the management and the families. Family caregivers a very, important part of running a home. They need to involve us, get us involved in fighting this pandemic together.
In a statement, Tender Care's executive director said staffing remains stable and its team is conducting daily reviews of evolving staffing needs, adding they will continue to keep families informed. It was back to school for many kids across the GTA this morning. Not all, though. The massive amount of snowfall we got meant some schools still remain closed. And the slick streets saw at least one school bus collision. If that's not stressful enough, there's also the threat of COVID-19. Still, parents and students persevered, many of them glad to be back. Ali Chiasson has more.
It's been a long journey to get back to school, and there have been some stumbles along the way, but the day has come.
I'm just celebrating. It's the first day back. Finally. Finally,
parents can catch up on
all the fun stuff, laundry, dishes, cleaning the general chaos of the last month.
What a relief. Freedom. Working at home with the kids is impossible.
Unfortunately for some families, yesterday's snow day carried over to today.
We had a contractor that was scheduled to remove that snow overnight, and it would appear that that did not happen.
6 TDSB schools continued with online learning today because the snow hadn't been plowed. So yeah, not a smooth start at John Poliani Collegiate in North York. And then there was a school bus fender bender near Bathurst and St. Clair. No injuries were reported, but at least one car sustained some damage. But more than the snow and the struggle buses, there's that one big concern on many parents' minds.
Probably the lack of reporting. They're not reporting cases in the classes now.
Schooling amid Omicron.
There's always that baseline of anxiety just because of everything, especially this time around with it being more transmissible.
Mixed emotions. Happy for my daughters having to go back, but everything that's going on right now, so.
We're feeling better because we have the N95 mask.
Administrators, at least the ones lucky enough to have HEPA filters in every classroom, are cautiously optimistic.
We're in good shape, and with the new screening tool, we hope that we can keep going in person.
While kids were kids about the whole thing.
Can't wait to go back to school. Because I want to see all my friends.
Both Toronto District and Toronto Catholic schools are running vaccine clinics in the evenings all week. For a list of locations, visit the school board's website. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
It's now been 2 full days of snow clearing for city crews. Still, some roads in the town are impassable. And tonight, we're getting a clearer picture of who could have chosen to close the regional highway system around the city that some say would have prevented some of the chaos. Chris Glover reports.
Hazifa Hussein has been putting in the hard hours since Monday, clearing her own driveway. But when she and her husband try, even by foot, to get onto their Scarborough Crescent, her red-hot frustration could boil the snow.
I am seeing a field of snow that is probably about 2 to 3 feet high, and it's virtually impassable.
Looking at the city's plow map, you get a sense of Hussein's main concern. West of Victoria Park, a lot of green and blue, meaning streets have been cleared within the past 12 hours. East of Vic Park, a lot of red, meaning streets were serviced 12 to 24 hours ago. And zooming into her neighborhood, it's mostly all red. And Hussein says a snowplow has not been on her street even once since Monday's wallop of winter.
Mr. Mayor, this is deplorable, and we pay our taxes just like everyone else in all the higher income areas, and this is happening way too often in Scarborough.
To utterly reject any suggestion that there are certain neighborhoods that get priority over certain others.
Mayor Tory says some streets have been missed across the city, and starting Thursday morning, residents will be able to call 311 to report it.
We wanted to be able to make that effort before we started taking the 311 service request calls so that we could have as much done as possible by that time.
Toronto started the day with 150 TTC buses still abandoned in snowbanks on city roads, down from the more than 500 buses originally stranded. The TTC says all of them will be cleared by the end of the day. The highways are clear and have been since Tuesday, with all stranded vehicles removed. On Monday, Toronto police closed the DVP and Gardiner entirely to give snowplows free rein. But the same move was not taken by the OPP on highways around the city, drawing criticism from some people who wound up stuck on the highway for 10 hours.
I didn't think that I was going to be stuck in snow on the 401 for that long, So I believe that they shut the DVP and Gardiner down. Great idea. They should have done this too.
In the face of that criticism, the OPP sent me a statement today saying when considering closing a highway like the 401 with 16 lanes in some places, there is a lot to consider, especially for the surrounding local roads and municipal roads and what the impacts will be on them. But the OPP committed to reviewing its decision in this case to see if changes or improvements should be made in the future. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
Meteorologist Colette Kennedy joins us now. And Colette, a small window this morning of milder temperatures for those who still had some digging out to do.
Oh, Kelda, that brief little warm-up today. Nice to be able to get outside a little bit, maybe do some cleaning up, and I hope kind of that's what folks did, because we've got cold air pushing back in now behind the cold front, so things refreezing, and there will be some slick areas, especially your driveways and sidewalks, that you really need to take some caution and take care, okay? Extreme cold warnings, not into the city in terms of the Environment Canada's warning, but you can see where those areas are because of the cold and the extreme wind chills. Then, because of this cold snap, some wintry weather travel conditions there in the turquoise, and the rest of us in the special weather statement, which does include the GTA and all the Golden Horseshoe, just to let you know, hey, things are going to be freezing up. Be careful. Daytime highs, look at this. Look at Ottawa, and then look elsewhere where we had some 4s and 5s. Of course, things have been cooling down rapidly. Still a little bit of cloud cover here that'll be to the west of us, and also around London, Chatham, a few flurries possible, St. Catharines area too, but we'll have kind of variable skies. There will be some sunshine in there tomorrow into the GTA, but look how cold it will be. We start off from a wind chill of -25, and it doesn't get much better, Kelda, into the afternoon. A little bit, though.
All right. Thanks so much, Colette. An elementary school in Pickering has been officially renamed. Sir John A. Macdonald Public School will now bear the name of a prominent Anishinaabe water advocate. The school board voting in favor of the change this week. Our Jessica Ng has reaction.
That a mainstream school board would honor a woman like Josephine. This is a sign that society really is changing.
Indigenous advocate Dawn Lavelle Harvard says it touches her heart. A school will bear the name of her late friend and colleague, Josephine Orbidasage Mandamin. They worked together for over 2 decades.
She was, without a doubt, one of the strongest Indigenous women warriors that I know.
Known as the grandmother water walker, Mandamin traveled around the Great Lakes by foot from 2003 to 2017. Her goal was to bring awareness to the area's water and environmental issues, especially those on Indigenous reserves. The elder received numerous accolades, including the Heritage Award for Excellence in Conservation from the Lieutenant Governor of Ontario.
It is recommended that the Board of Trustees select the first choice, Bidasage Mandamin Public School, as the official name of the currently named Sir John A. Macdonald Public School in Pickering.
This week, Durham District School Board voted to change the name of Sir John A. Public School in time for the next school year. They took into account
the board's commitment and legal responsibilities to Indigenous rights, human rights, anti-oppression, anti-racism,
and whether the current school name promoted an inclusive environment. The change will cost between $25,000 and $35,000. Indigenous activists hope it comes with extensive community education.
What we've seen in the past, perhaps with naming after, say, colonial icons, is that we've dropped parts of that history on purpose. When we name something like a school after a really remarkable Indigenous woman, there should be that continued association with what that history is there.
Mandamin inspired generations of water walkers and activists who continue to fight for First Nations access to clean water.
If Josephine were with us today, what do you think she would feel about the school being renamed after her?
she would be down there with those students, telling them that the importance of everybody doing what they can. She really was just that committed also to our young people.
Also under consideration was the renaming of Whitby's Julie Payette Public School. Durham District ultimately voted against that name change. Jessica Ng, CBC News, Toronto.
Ontario has a housing crisis, and that's no secret.
The Premier, Ontario mayors, and even critics agree we need to find solutions to the issue of affordable housing. We'll bring you details on how the province plans to make it happen after the break. Welcome back. Premier Doug Ford and his Progressive Conservatives are leading in a public poll ahead of June's provincial election. That's according to new figures by Abacus Data.
Doug Ford and the PCs are in a relatively good position, despite being, polarizing and having a lot of opponents who don't like the Premier. He's got enough people who say, I think they deserve another chance.
37% of respondents support Ford and the PCs, with the party in a 9-point lead over the Liberals, who are at 28%. A quarter of respondents supported the NDP. Now, Coletto adds that those in Ontario were asked to think about how each party handled issues, the biggest ones including the COVID-19 pandemic, healthcare, and affordable living. And to explore ways to make housing more affordable, Premier Ford held a long-awaited housing summit today after numerous delays. The virtual meeting included the Municipal Affairs and Housing Minister, along with mayors of the province's largest cities. Our Greg Ross has more.
Ontario has a housing crisis, and that's no secret.
To help tackle the affordable housing issue in Ontario, the Premier says his government is committed to spending millions.
We're providing over $45 million for a new streamlined development approvals fund. That will help the province's largest municipalities unlock housing supply by cutting the red tape that continues to stifle progress.
Ford says his government will create a housing affordability task force that will explore ways of increasing supply to make it easier and more affordable for Ontarians to buy and rent homes. But there is still a lot of work to be done.
There's no silver bullet. Addressing the housing crisis is a long-term strategy.
Today, opposition leadership questioned the province's long-term strategy, suggesting their actions speak louder than their words.
We heard a lot of talk at this housing summit, but what we didn't hear are any concrete, real measures to make housing more affordable.
NDP housing critic Jessica Bell says Ford's record as Premier contradicts the claims he made today.
And Doug Ford has made choices during his 3-year term that has driven the cost of homes up. He has cancelled rent control on new homes.
In all, 29 mayors from across the province participated in the conference, including the mayor of Toronto, where the price of real estate has reached an all-time high, with the average home now selling for well over $1 million.
I thought it was a very productive meeting, and we'll see what comes out of it by way of specific changes that can be made by municipalities.
Mayor Tory says all involved in today's meeting agreed that they have to find more efficient ways to build new housing to meet the province's growing population. And he believes solving that issue will require all hands on deck.
It was very much emphasized that the solution to the supply of affordable housing and all housing will involve all three governments.
A report laying out the recommendations from today's summit is expected to be published in the coming months. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
Earlier this week, Health Canada approved a new oral medication for use against COVID-19. Today, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced that the first shipments have arrived and are being distributed to the provinces and territories. He calls the pills another tool to use against the virus, not a cure-all.
It's not a replacement for getting vaccinated, for wearing masks, for staying safe, for keeping your distance, for doing all the things that need to keep us safe from the beginning. It's just an extra layer of tools that we can use as we move forward through this pandemic.
Trudeau also says Canada now has enough doses so that everyone can be vaccinated and receive a booster. He continues to encourage parents to get their children aged 5 to 12 vaccinated. Trudeau also announced that by the end of this year, Canada will be contributing another 200 million doses of vaccine to the COVAX initiative to be distributed to developing countries. And you're looking at a live shot of the Toronto skyline, cloudy with some clear breaks tonight. Currently, it is -2 downtown, but feeling more like -10. Let's go back to Colette now. And Colette, a warm-up came and went. Now we're looking at some icy conditions.
Kelda, it was a warm-up, but it was brief. And so when you have 40 to, in some cases, nearly 60 centimeters of snow on the ground, that's a lot of snow to melt. So we saw just a little bit, and some of that runoff now refreezing. So earlier in the show, I was showing the special weather statement because of some slippery and icy conditions. You need to use caution. Also, we have areas with extreme cold warnings and winter weather travel advisories in eastern Ontario, and then snow squall watch and warnings, too, because of the wind. So it's the return of this Arctic air for the weekend. So we have a couple of days, tomorrow and Friday, but for the weekend, the temperatures come up closer to seasonal, and in fact, in some cases, a little bit above seasonal temperatures. So there are your wind gusts. You can see, earlier they were from the south to southwest, and then they changed direction more westerly, northwesterly to northerly, and that's going to provide that wind chill as well. So overnight, as the temperature falls, and tomorrow morning with those winds, as those two meet, we're looking at a feel of minus 25 to start the day off for Toronto. You can see some of the, I've been saying variable skies, and what I mean is there'll be areas with lots of sunshine. You can see those pockets with clear conditions, but because of the winds across the lake, we'll also get into a little bit of light flurry activity and some stubborn cloud cover just to the west, the GTA, but then we see it break up, and then a little more cloud cover comes in late in the day. So I'm putting sun in the forecast with some cloud, and you just have to be aware that at times and in certain areas, it's going to be a little bit thicker there. So the wind chill for Windsor tomorrow, minus 19, how it will feel in those wee morning hours, and not much of a warm up, especially when we had some folks with 4 or 5 degrees for a daytime high today. There's a look at those overnight chilly temperatures that we'll be seeing, minus 16 for Mississauga. That wind chill, even tomorrow afternoon, the winds will back off, but those wind chills are still going to be pretty chilly. Friday as well, starting off at minus 22 Friday morning, and then into the weekend. I said the temperatures, they'll moderate at least a little bit. Slight chance to get some flurry activity Saturday night into Sunday.
All right, thanks so much. It's not something you see every day. Police are searching for a man who stole a high-end guitar by, get this, hiding it in his pants. The guitar is valued at $8,000. Now, he is seen on surveillance footage here shoving the 60th anniversary 1959 Gibson Les Paul guitar into his baggy sweatpants. It happened at Cosmo Music in Richmond Hill on December 20th. And today, police released these pictures of the suspect and are asking anyone with information to please come forward. That is our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you back here tomorrow at 11. Have a great night, everyone.